Forget the story we've been told for generations. Men hunted, women gathered. Men led, women obeyed. Clean, convenient, and comforting. But dead wrong. The truth is buried in ash, stone, and bone. Prehistoric life stretching back to Neanderthals and beyond was anything but simple. It was brutal, complex, and nothing like the myths we've come to believe. Survival didn't care about gender. Everyone worked. Everyone contributed. And women weren't waiting at home. They were shaping the very future of humanity. In recent decades, discoveries have shattered the myth that hunting was a male-only job. Neanderthal sites, dating back over 100,000 years, show evidence of women actively participating in hunting. For example, studies of Neanderthal skeletal remains reveal that some women bore injuries consistent with close-range hunting of large animals, just like men. These weren't occasional helpers, they were hunters fully engaged in the most dangerous tasks. Moreover, at archaeological sites in Europe and the Americas, women have been found buried with sophisticated hunting tools, spears, blades, and even projectiles, challenging centuries-old assumptions. One striking example is the approximately 9,000-year-old burial of a female hunter in Peru, found with a full arsenal of hunting weapons. This indicates that women not only hunted, but may have held leadership roles in hunting parties. Anthropologists also observe that among modern hunter-gatherer societies, gender roles in hunting are far more fluid than popular narratives suggest. Women often hunt small and medium game, and in some cultures they lead coordinated group hunts, wielding weapons and tracking prey with equal skill. But hunting is only part of the story. Women's roles as gatherers were crucial and sophisticated. Gathered plant foods provided up to 70% of daily calories in many societies. This wasn't passive work. It demanded deep ecological knowledge, knowing which plants were safe, nutritious, or medicinal, and when and where to find them. Women's expertise in these areas was vital for the group's survival. Beyond gathering and hunting, women were central leaders, organizing camps, managing resources, deciding when to move, and mediating social bonds. Cooperation was the cornerstone of prehistoric life, and women's leadership in maintaining group cohesion was essential. Genetic studies confirm this egalitarian social structure. Early human groups show evidence that women were influential in shaping their communities, contradicting the idea of a strictly patriarchal past. So when we ask who ruled survival, the answer is clear. Women were hunters and gatherers, leaders and innovators. They wielded knowledge, skill, and influence that kept humanity alive through the harshest conditions. This isn't just ancient history, it's a foundation that redefines power itself, one built on shared strength, respect, and resilience. For centuries, history has been written from a narrow, often biased perspective. But bones don't lie. The fossils, burial sites, and ancient tools scattered across the world tell a different story, one where women's roles have been systematically overlooked, misinterpreted, or erased. Take the case of the famous man the hunter myth. For decades, archaeologists assumed that hunting tools found in graves belonged to men. But new forensic techniques, examining wear patterns on bones and weapons, reveal that many of these tools belong to women. In one groundbreaking study, researchers analyzed spear points found with a 9,000-year-old female skeleton in Peru. The wear on those spear tips matched the throwing patterns of a skilled hunter, not a casual gatherer. This wasn't an anomaly. It was evidence that women actively hunted, sometimes leading the hunt. Then there's the Neanderthal woman, whose skeleton shows battle wounds consistent with large game hunting. Her injuries match those of male hunters, suggesting shared risk and responsibility. Beyond tools and injuries, ancient DNA is rewriting gender roles too. Genetic patterns reveal social structures where women had influence and mobility, contradicting the idea that prehistoric women were confined to the home. Even the study of ancient art, cave paintings, carvings, and figurines hints at female leadership and spiritual power, often ignored in traditional interpretations. Why have these truths been ignored? Because history was written and filtered through patriarchal eyes. Scholars, often male, projected modern gender norms onto the past, shaping narratives that served social and political agendas. But the bones, the tools, the DNA, they stand as undeniable proof. Women were hunters, leaders, and innovators. Ignoring this evidence distorts our understanding of humanity itself. Reclaiming this history means listening to what the bones have always told us: a story of equality, cooperation, and shared power. When we think about prehistoric power, the image that comes to mind is often of men with spears. But the real power wasn't just about weapons. It was about control, creativity, and community. And women held that power. Fire, the cornerstone of human civilization, was much more than warmth or cooking. It was a social hub, a tool for survival and a catalyst for culture. Women were the keepers of the fire, the ones who tended it carefully, ensuring its flame never died out. This role gave them control over daily life: who ate, who stayed warm, and who was safe at night. Beyond fire, women were the inventors and innovators. They crafted tools, from grinding stones for processing plants to sewing needles for making clothes, that transformed how humans lived. These innovations didn't just ease survival, they expanded it, allowing groups to thrive in harsher environments. Women also managed resources and knowledge. They passed down critical information about edible plants, animal behavior, and medicinal herbs, becoming the living libraries of their communities. This knowledge was power. Leadership in early human groups wasn't about dominance or force. It was about wisdom and cooperation. Women were often the decision makers, guiding migrations, resolving conflicts, and organizing communal efforts. Their leadership was subtle but decisive, keeping groups cohesive and resilient. In many hunter-gatherer societies today, women hold influential roles as elders and knowledge keepers, roles that echo deep into our past. So, the power behind the fire was a power of life itself. Women shaped the culture, survival strategies, and social bonds that built the foundation of human civilization. This power was quiet but unstoppable. Proof that influence isn't always loud or violent. It's the force that sustains, nurtures, and leads. For tens of thousands of years, humanity lived in balance. Women and men shared the work, the risks, and the power. But then, something changed. Roughly 10,000 years ago, humans began to settle. The rise of agriculture marked a turning point, not just in how we lived, but in who held control. Farming promised stability, stored food, permanent homes, the chance to accumulate resources. But it also introduced ownership of land, of labor, of people. And with ownership came hierarchy. Suddenly, strength wasn't measured by adaptability or cooperation, but by who controlled the fields, the surplus, and eventually, the women. Agriculture reshaped gender roles. As physical labor in the fields became more valued, women were increasingly confined to the home. Their roles as gatherers, healers, and community leaders were diminished. The skills that once ensured group survival were sidelined in favor of muscle and production. And this wasn't just about work. It was about reproduction. Settled life meant inheritance. Lineage mattered. Controlling women's bodies became a way to control bloodlines, property, and power. Female sexuality, once free and woven into communal life, was now regulated, restricted, and shamed. In this new system, patriarchy was born, not as an inevitable outcome, but as a cultural response to a changing way of life. Religion, law, and myth all evolved to support it. Goddesses were replaced by gods. Matrilineal systems gave way to patriarchy. And over generations, this shift hardened into truth. But it's not ancient biology that explains patriarchy, it's ancient bureaucracy. The archaeological record shows this shift clearly. Burial sites from early farming cultures show growing inequality. Men buried with weapons, wealth, and status symbols, while women's graves become simpler, more domestic, more invisible. This wasn't evolution, it was erasure. The rise of agriculture didn't just change our food, it changed our future. It set in motion a system that would stretch for millennia, where power became centralized, gender became rigid, and women were pushed from the center of the human story to its edges. But here's the truth. It didn't have to be this way. It wasn't always this way, and it doesn't have to stay this way. Before the kitchen, before empires, before the chains, women ruled survival. They hunted, they led, they healed, they created, they carried the fire. Their power wasn't loud or violent, it was steady, strategic, and essential. And it shaped the course of human history long before patriarchy claimed the pen. Reclaiming that story doesn't just change the past, it changes the present.